Hello, everyone. Sorry for starting a little bit late here. I ended up going to the office this morning, and when I got there, the office was not open. Normally is, and I have a key, but my wife had the key this morning. She had some things that she had to go take care of, so I do apologize. I am actually operating from my home computer, and I didn't even have the same morning mindset backslide, so I had an older one that I went ahead and used. But I got it together, and then it took a minute for GoToWebinar to launch, because any of you have loaded GoToWebinar on your computers before. The first time takes a minute. So I am a couple minutes late. Thank you for waiting for me patiently. So please get out a pen and a notebook. Today's subject's an interesting one because I kind of was keying on this in a previous mindset, just recent. And I felt that it was important enough to bring this back up because I actually got good feedback from some individuals that felt that it was a good mindset. And even a few people had said that they really kind of needed it today. And I even had some opportunity with a few of the reps that I have to kind of talk a little bit about this. And so I wanted to bring this up because I'd mentioned something by Tony Robbins, and I, of course, slaughtered it because I didn't have it in front of me or anything. So I went and found it. And I think this is important, okay? So let's start out with a quote by Einstein. So imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the whole world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. So this is a reality, right? To see yourself the way you should see yourself in the moments of being successful, okay? We talked about this really in a couple of different mindsets a little bit differently, right? To imagine your progress, that you're going to actually succeed, and really in a little way to ignore some of the warning signs, let's just say, or signposts that may be telling you that it's not working the way you think it should, because life really goes on a curve. Okay, but one of the biggest mistakes people make and where pain comes from is they think there's a straight line. And they've got a vision of themselves at B and they're standing at A. If they don't go on that straight line to B, a lot of times they get very discouraged. Well, being a professional for as long as I've been, helping hundreds, even thousands of companies become successful, I've never seen a straight line yet. Now, I've seen things go much better for companies than they would have ever expected. That does happen. But the majority of the time, things end up becoming quite a bit more challenging, take 2 to 3 times as long, end up costing a lot more money. There's usually those types of challenges that come up. And so you have to get a certain mindset. And this is probably one of my favorite kind of combination of quotes by Tony Robbins, so I thought I'd bring it up. So everyone knows that if you've done the studies, Dr. Seligman is very famous for doing studies on optimism. And in those studies, do you know what he found out? People that are pessimists are much more realistic. They are much more accurate. If you give them a test and you ask them to look at something and give you a size measurement of it, or to evaluate their own success or failure at a task, in every study that Seligman's done, he did it in the University of Pennsylvania. What he found was that the optimists always see themselves as doing better than they really did. They basically BS themselves. So before we get on to the next comment here, many of you, if you haven't been the leaders in a company, if you haven't been, let's say, the sales management type of person, where you've got to work with people and encourage people, keep their head straight towards a vision of something that's going to be successful for them, then you don't experience as much as this as the rest of us do. And that's that you have to cast your mind into the future and see things going the way they should, because it's like an anchor, right? You throw that anchor out there and you pull yourself towards it, right? You kind of pull your future towards you by keeping a really solid vision, a target of where you're going. And so you have to have a really strong anchor. And so he's talking here about how pessimists, right, they're more accurate. And everybody here knows someone like that. As a matter of fact, it's okay to know people like that, okay? The kind of people that count the money in the company, okay? The kind of people that are dealing with taxes, the kind of people that are dealing with legal policy for you, whether that be a outside legal source or something internal. That's a very good thing to have people that are looking for the pitfalls, but not in leadership. That's not a place for it to exist. As a matter of fact, actually, a really good friend of mine, Trip Jones, talked about entrepreneurship and how it's a very fine line between masochicism and persistence. Right? You have to be willing to experience pain of failure on a consistent basis, but you have to stay very, very persistent about the fact that you're going to be successful. I mean, what an odd Murphy's Law to have to deal with on a consistent basis, right? Well, let's read this next quote here from one of Tony Robbins' live events, actually. So what happens to the pessimists? They are 10 times more accurate. But here's what he found. What he found out is because the people who are accurate never push themselves because they know it's never going to work anyways, whereas the optimists see it better than it is. So they keep doing it because they have the illusion they did well. Well, I'll do even better next time. And because of the optimism, they did it more often. And so optimists succeed at a 4 to 5-fold, depending upon the task, results ultimately beyond anything that a pessimist will do, and they're not as accurate. Okay, and did you see that? 5-fold, 4 to 5 times more successful with the tasks in which they have undertaken as an optimist, because simply they've put themselves in this mindset of success. Okay, that does not mean everything that you put into your mind is going to come true. That's an impossibility. And as an entrepreneur, you're actually needing to get into a very different mindset than the A to B style of thinking, or you will experience continuous pain. You're at A, you expect to get to B in a very specific fashion. You don't get to B, and it's painful, and it's difficult, and you're upset, and it doesn't make sense, and you thought you'd be able to pull it off. Let's just say that you made 50 phone calls today, and then your goal is to get 10 appointments. You got none. Okay, how many of us have had those days? I could raise my hand 6 times on that one. So the reality is you've got to look at things differently in order to become highly successful in what you're doing, whether it's in sales, entrepreneurship, doesn't really matter. If you're having to build a market of any sort, you have to have that grit. That's kind of a popular term. You've got to be able to keep your mind on the ideology that you're going to succeed. You have to envision in your mind, within your imagination, going back to this quote by Einstein, that there's going to be this experience that you're going to go through where things start to work well. And you have to ignore all of the pain. Okay, you have to ignore all of the difficulty. And you don't become ignorant of things that are causing you to fail, right? You got to understand your lessons well enough to learn through them and not repeat them. But you can't let them slow you down and start giving you reasons why you're not focused on your goal. Because if you allow that to drag you into a pessimistic point of view, just remember this one thing. You're backing out of an opportunity to be successful by allowing that to take root. Okay? Overanalyzing your situation, spending too much time trying to decide A or B, and trying to really discover things before you really get started is a huge mistake. Okay? Some of the most successful people I've ever met blew my mind. I consider myself somewhat of an intellectual. I study a lot. I read a lot. I enjoy academics, really, to a large degree. And I have met individuals 10, 15 times more successful than me. And I've been just completely blown away that they got to that stage somehow. Because they didn't seem to know their product that well. They didn't seem to really understand the market that well. But man, were they passionate about telling everybody and talking to everybody and calling everybody and pulpiting the whole thing and getting up and talking about it every chance they get, and to carry stacks of business cards with them. And if someone's over the years of 18 years old, they got a business card. Many of you have met people like this, okay? I wish I was more like that. And so the reality is, if you're going to be successful, if you're going to make it, remember this quote by Einstein: imagination is more important than knowledge, okay? Maybe you've got proof that you're not making it happen the way you should from today. Okay, today when it was bad, it wasn't a good day. I didn't do what I expected I would do. I've got proof that things aren't working. right? Well, knowledge here is not as important as the imagination that you have about being successful and continuing to move forward and not letting those things bother you. Okay, so it's kind of a continuation of my last one, really the last couple of them, but I really felt that kind of grabbing this exact quote from Robbins was valuable because this is something that stuck with me for a long time, even from the very first time I heard it. And so I wanted to really kind of share it with you from the perspective that he had because I thought it was extremely valuable and hopefully very helpful for you here. So it's Friday. What do we say on Fridays? On Fridays, you have to work twice as hard. How come? Because everybody else is working half as hard. And if you want to get the same results, you got to work twice as hard to make up for it, right? So try to make Friday your day that you work the hardest. Try to not get caught up when everyone else is getting caught up where, 1 o'clock on a Friday, they're kind of kicking way back in their chair and checking their clock and, making phone calls, trying to figure out what they're going to do that night. Go the opposite direction, okay? Over time, by thinking that way, okay, your Fridays start to add up. How many Fridays are there in a year? There's 52. Okay, ask yourself, would you be willing as an entrepreneur right now to take the next 52 days and do nothing? That's a really good question. Okay, if you're trying to be successful, you got a family to feed, you've got a career to build, you've got things that you've got to accomplish, would you be willing right now to give up the next 52 days and just sit on your butt and do nothing and then pick it back up in 52 days? You don't notice that that's basically what you're doing when you don't take Friday serious. It's important. If you're working 5 days a week, work 5 days a week, right? All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Monday, I will not be here Monday. I am actually traveling this weekend to Fresno to meet with one of our partners in Consult for Health. So I'll be there for the weekend, and I don't fly back until Monday. So Tuesday morning, I will be back in office. We will be doing these as again. I have changed my schedule a little bit. I have some needs to be kind of available later in the evenings for some of the things that I'm doing right now. And so I've switched it a little bit to where the morning mindsets are now at 8 a.m. Pacific. It seems like most of the people that usually get on them are on here. So, welcome. I'm glad you guys made it. But you can expect them to be at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, at least for a period coming up here. So thanks for joining. Hopefully you guys got something valuable out of today's lesson, and I will be back here on Tuesday.